It was an adventure. We didn't know how this would work out. When Denny and I first talked about hosting the convention, we came to Erector Square, met with the owners and the managers, and they showed us this room. And Al will recall that we talked to Kathy downstairs, and she said, "Yeah, okay, I'll show you." A bunch of Gilbert nerds. And I introduced myself, but she didn't catch the name. And we're talking and this and that, and I started talking about a couple of my memories from here and this, and she says, "What's your name again?" And from that point forward, the folks here were like, "We would love to have you here." So kudos to them for recognizing an opportunity, and to their credit, they've done a ton of renovation for this entire factory complex. Significant renovations. They've brought it back to life. It's completely booked with artist studios, architects' offices, a lot of other small offices. They have a waiting list, so it's a very healthy operation. But they never touched this office. She recognized that this was something worth keeping. So we were... That's personally jumping. And so we were very grateful for that. I'm going to introduce some people. I'm going to tell you one of the very few memories. I do have a memory of being in this office. It was 1963, and that was the year that Gilbert sold, my dad, ACGHS, sold the company to the Ronda Corporation. And as part of that, well, not as part of the deal, but as a result of that deal, the Ronda Corporation, which sponsored Lassie, brought Lassie in. Lassie and John Provost, Timmy. I met them in this office. I got to pet the dog. That was kind of cool. And then they put on a show. There was a theater down there somewhere on the main floor where Lassie got up and put on a little show. And the other thing I remember was somebody said, "Well, Timmy," John Provost, I guess they call him Timmy, which is exactly that. "Who's your special guest?" And he's like, "I don't know." This is Mr. Dave Gilbert. So I remember that. There's some other folks here. I'm going to read some names off and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your connection to the company. Is David Conte here?
Yes, hello. My mother worked here from 1950 to 57 until she was pregnant with me. And she worked in the office and she operated a machine called a comptometer. And you have to look it up on the internet. It's a big wooden box with levers and buttons. And in 1951, she was here as a young lady, and they had a summer outing at Paradise Park in Hampton. And they had a beauty contest for female employees, if you can believe it. My mother came in second.
I'm glad you could be here. Greta Edelman. Talk about your connection. No, people don't know who you are.
My name's Greta Gilbert Edelman. My original name was Greta LaBelle Gilbert. My grandfather was F.W. Gilbert, which is A.C. Gilbert's brother, who helped him run the company while A.C. was in Germany. And my dad also worked at the company. He was M. Charles Gilbert. Nobody went by their names. They were all initials, always. And I was presented to A.C. Gilbert. I was born in 1960 and he died in 1961. But I was presented actually to marry his wife by my parents because they were very close, and Mary actually knitted a shawl for my mother. That's my connection.
And I hadn't seen Greta for 30 years or so until we reconnected about 10 years ago.
When your daughter was.
That's right. Yep, my daughter was here and your mom was still alive. Charlton Gilbert is my dad's best man at his wedding. Greta knows this also, but we both have copies of the home movie of Charlton and my dad Al in British Columbia as like 15-year-old teenagers. It was just really cool. So our families have always had a strong connection. Ronda, Come out here, Rhonda. Introduce yourself.
I'm Ronda, last name is Aurigemma. I know the tough one, but my name is Richard. I am Greta's president, and so my mother was Greta's father's brother, obviously, and so F.W. Gilbert, AC's brother, is my grandfather as well. And I know that your mom was really great friends with my mom. They were very, very close. So that was a great thing. And I never really got to know AC. I only heard stories pretty much. Because again, it was deceased right shortly when I was a little child. So, but we did play with the trains downstairs. I wish I knew where they went. We had the erector sets. I didn't get to do much because my brothers always told me I had to go away. It was great. I know we had a chemistry set because we had I guess what had been a dark room at one time, and it was in there. I think they locked me in there with it once. But it was a great thing. So I'm thrilled. I just really found out about this, to be honest. Thank you, Greta. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So Fiona was, Charlton was my dad's best man. Fiona was my mom's bridesmaid and actually introduced my mother and father. Fiona was my mom's classmate at Bradford College.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how it all got started. Is Tim Egan here?
Yeah.
Tim, tell us a little bit about your connection.
Well, my name's Tim Egan, and I'm from Central Pennsylvania. But I grew up just down the street here on Peck Street. My dad, John, graduated in 1933 from the local high school, New Haven High, and he began to work at the A.C. Gilbert Company until he got drafted, and which obviously happened a lot. But anyway, he got drafted. He was an electric truck driver here at this facility, and he actually got his job back when he came to. And the reason why I got connected with y'all is over in the corner, there's a little leather pouch that the A.C. Gilbert Company gave to every returning veteran who came back to work. And this is John, just so he's here. Make sure he gets credit.
Yeah, it's a service record holder that Tim donated to the society, and it's very cool.
And I do want to say, as I learned more about the Gilbert Company, I'm really very pleased and kind of honored that he worked for a company that had such a profound impact around the world. I mean, it wasn't just the things like that made lives comfortable, like kitchen appliances, but the science toys that were created gave so many boys and girls an exposure to science that they may very well have gone on to careers in science and made the world a better place. So A.C. Gilbert really, I think, should be proud of having done that. It's a positive thing for the world. That's all I got.
Thank you. Sev, introduce yourself.
I'm Sev Marsted. My mother was Patricia Gilbert, AC's daughter, so AC is my grandfather. I was a little wondering how I was going to feel coming up here, because I worked here. My summers when I was 16 and 17, and I wasn't sure I'd recognize where I worked. Right there.
Engineering department.
The whole building on top is the engineering department. And that's where all the draftsmen were. Just like your house, you have a movements in your house, they would draw parts of everything that they made. And all the parts of an locomotive and so on. But I ran, they would have to make copies of it. They put them on tracing paper, they would make hard copies of it. We didn't have Xerox machines then. So we had a blueprint machine.
It smelled like ammonia.
Ammonia paper,
And
yeah.
the smell of ammonia.
Yep.
And you get these orders that come in from all over the factory, said, we need a print of this, and the machines broke down, we gotta make them do something. So I did that for half the summer. Then they started letting me learn how to draw, how to do mechanical drawing. And the only thing I ever drew was a cardboard box for packing. But the result of that was I go back to high school, and I graduated as a senior, I get the mechanical drawing award. But it was that building there, that's where the March Frisbee and the chief enroller, all work. And my grandfather would, I'd show up to work and I'd my khaki pants and my loafers and an iron shirt, no necktie, and walk up the stairs and punch the time clock and put in my, worked until like 10:15, and we got a coffee break. I would do coffee then, and had an hour for lunch. We'd go to the cafeteria, and sometimes they would have the movies of my grandfather's
Big game trips, Alaska, British Columbia.
And then you punch your clock at 5 o'clock and go home, and they 75 cents an hour, which is $35 a week, which is much higher than the $5 a week allowance I got from my mother. So it was, so the second summer, then I went in with the call, and I was an expediter. And these were the guys, when the assembly line was not working or something, missing a part of the assembly line, you have to go to the other assembly line and try and figure out how to get it to, how to get things going. The place was jumping, just was busier than Dickens. Mainly because it's summertime, making stuff for Christmas. And then what was on the drawing board, I remember they had to go to the local hobby store and buy a car, electric train car that would clean the rails. And they had assembled these different models from different manufacturers. And I was wondering, that's kind of all they started. From then they started using that and designing their own train cleaning car. And then there's a guy in the engineering department, the chemist from the local high school. And he was down there redoing the chemistry book. So I said to Chapman, he's the guy we're talking about, he was a slave. Whoa. So that's kind of, so I worked those 2 years, and that was kind of, it was awfully hot, that's all I can tell you.
You can read the Sev wrote an article for the newsletter a few years ago that it's online, you can look it up. Pretty nice.
Anyway, he was at Christmas time, you would get the catalog. And I was into erectors and more into the trains. I didn't do chemistry, I had a microscope set, but you were allowed to go through your wish list. And you got one thing. I got an 8.5 with my first erector, so it's 8.5. And I got that, I'm gonna say 46, 47. Then I got the 12.5. And actually picked up a lot, it took 2 or 3 years, and I've done the parachute jump, but I still have it. And then, but the trains were more part of my life. I was in junior high, and I was at the garage, so looking forward to tomorrow, we're going on to else. So anyway, thank you for your time.
And I have a little different perspective. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt all worked here, but that was before I was born, so I don't have many memories of their working here. But I can tell you what it was like to be a kid in this neighborhood. And I know someone described the long wall that used to go across the front. It had a whole lot. It had 9 or 10 big windows, and you could look in those, and those were changed often to see, what was new that they offered. There was also the Hall of Science here that we would be allowed to go into. And at Christmas, pretty much everybody in the neighborhood got toys from ACGHS. I'm not sure how many were paid for, but I had 5 complete train sets, I had Erector sets, and we weren't a wealthy family at all, so maybe some of my relatives were, I don't know. But I never heard a bad word from anyone that worked at ACGHS about working at ACGHS. There was such respect for the person and for the building, and I think that's a tribute to someone, because it's always the boss that people complain about, and I never heard that complained about. The one thing that's a vivid memory for me is the whistle that they had that went off 7 times a day here. Okay? It went off at 7 o'clock in the morning to tell you you had a half hour to get to work. It went off at 7:25 to tell you had 5 minutes. 7:30 to say you were late if you weren't at work. It went off at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock to let you know that Lunch hour was starting, went off at 5:12 or 5:01 to let you know he has 5 minutes to get back to work, and then again at 1 o'clock, and then one last time at the end of the day. We didn't need watches. Everybody knew what time it was. So it was a great environment to grow up in, and I enjoyed hearing some of the memories that they have here. And I just want you to know, for people that lived in this neighborhood, it's modern Zabi's. Okay? It's not Pepe's, it's not Sally's, it's modern.
Judith Petrulis, my father was urban Egan, he worked, I think, dress. I mean, if anybody knows him. I don't know too much about it, because he left when I left the company when I was a year old. He never said a word about it, or anything like that, but somehow we got the lecture set. My mother hid that from everybody, from all of us kids. She knew someday it was going to be worth something. And when we found out when she passed away, it was all inside of blankets that would show the closet that she had overloaded with stuff, you know. And so that we found that it was on brand new condition still. And then my father also had a train set that he had bought. It's the silver one with the shadows of the people. And he'd have it set up downstairs, and so he'd always have that going year round, and so we'd always go down and watch it. He didn't let us touch it, you know, because that was his baby. I guess he worked real hard for it and stuff. And then we also had another train that he used to put around the Christmas tree. So when we woke up in the morning on Christmas morning, suddenly the lights went on and the train was going on and stuff like that. It was just magical. So I don't know if anybody knows who he is and if they work with him or not. We don't know much at all, but you know, just thrilled that we have some kind of memory of him anyway.
Next, multitask here. Thank you, Judith. Cynthia Potts? Yeah.
She is Mary and I were separated when I was a child. And my mother had worked here between 1950 and 1955, what I'm learning. My sister and I being united back in 1999, and found out that my mother...
For adoption, she didn't abort her, she sent her for adoption. That's one of my mother did. But you never met my mother?
I never met my mom, but I knew that she was.
I remember getting a train set when I was 5 years old, did not appreciate it. I said, I'm not a boy, to my uncle. He got me the train set, I'm not a boy. So it was so funny. And I don't know what happened to that train set. She worked, and I'm sure she enjoyed it. I think the Rice's worked at the young Papa's Rice, named Rice. Did they ever work at ACGHS Rice family? His mom was a nanny to her, so that family did something. It just, she was a 98 July. You may have known the person was over here, you probably worked with that person. That was over here, 102, I bet. There are pictures that you said at my age?
There's new company newsletters, which would probably be your best source of employee information.
Pictures, that'd be nice, yeah. But I mean, I was like 3 to 7 years old, so. But I'm sure it's a great
All the
place to work.
information I've learned was from my sister.
She's the one that hears, she's in Ohio and she hears about these conventions. I didn't know anything about these conventions.
I live in Connecticut. So I came to visit her, I could come to the convention.
So glad I came.
Well, thanks for coming. Is Ludwig Spinelli here? Ludwig? All right, Janice, Dr. Thibodeau? All right. Tell us about this.
My father, John Papeika, worked here for a number of years. I'm not quite sure. I know it was more than 25. he was a supervisor of production control. And like other people that have talked about the neighborhood, we lived down on Willow Street. So my father used to walk to work, and when I was like in the 1st and 2nd grade, I would walk up here to meet him. And if he wasn't outside already, I would come through those double doors. And I guess security wasn't as good as it is today in some places, because there was a security guard there, and he knew me. And he said, "Oh, hi, Miss Janice. Your father's in the building somewhere. You can go find him." I walked around. I would stop in various offices. I do a lot of the secretaries, say hello to people. He had an office up here somewhere on the 3rd floor. I would find him, we would go home. But one thing that I kind of remember is somebody mentioned, I think the last man back there, about piecework. One day my father came home with this huge box and he said, "You want to make some money?" I said, "Sure." So my mother and an aunt and I, for probably a week, after supper at night, we put newspaper on the kitchen table. And I don't know if you remember, the train sets came with these little rubber quarters. They were little black quarters, and they had like a blue jacket and a blue cap. And what we had to do, we had all these bottles of blue paint, and you had to take the little black rubber quarter and dip them in upside down, so that his jacket and hat and the little suitcase he had was blue. Then you had to hold him there for a while till the paint dried so it didn't drip down on his pants. And you stood them up, and then my job was when they were dry, you had these little vials of flesh color paint. And I had a little paintbrush, and you had to dab a little flesh color on each one of the faces. So if you have any of those in your train sets, they were probably handmade.
How old were you?
I was about 8 or 9. So and I got a penny for each little man that I painted. The only other thing I'll say is because he worked here, I had probably every year for Christmas, somebody said that they featured a certain toy or every Christmas. So whatever the featured toy was, I got it for a present. And trains were the things that I liked the best. But my mother used to get some of the house things. So I still have a working Gilbert fan, and I still use the turquoise grill to make pancakes. And I actually have the Crocker, which is must be over 50 years old, and the original recipe thing. And I still make some things that were in that original recipe thing that are pretty good.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we had all those appliances too. I remember the pancake maker. Kevin, Wetmore. Come on up.
I just have to catch my figure out how old I am. 18 at the time, and a friend of the family who worked out in the building in Frankfurt that Gilbert had. He said, "What are you doing for the summer?" I said, "Well, I'll get a job," and graduated from high school. And he said, "Well, how would you like to come and work for AC Gilbert?" And I came down to this building and filled out an application. And the job was to spend the summer driving a truck from Chicago because they were setting up a program where they had 3 different trips from Boston, from Maine, all the way down to Miami, from Chicago to New Orleans, and then from Dallas to Seattle. And since I already had been to Florida once, I know the East Coast. So I selected Chicago to New Orleans. They took us down to the New York office and trained us how to support put up the displays, how to do a media presentation. Because they were having the wholesale job coming to every major city between Chicago and New Orleans. And so we supported the salespeople that came in. And to a person, they were terrific people. And I know even when I started working later on and was a manager, one of the things I always kept in mind was one of those fellows that told me was absolutely true. And he said, "Kevin, people will soon forget what you say, but they'll long remember how they make you feel." And that's how it was working with AC Gilbert people. one thing I do have to remember is to thank David here, because we had some wonderful pheasant dinners. My brother poaching in paradise because we lived down the street from there. So it was a wonderful time. But just in terms of taking the trip, I can't believe they had 18-year-olds. The one I was 18, the other guy was much older. He was 20. And we drove the truck and stuff at every major city. Probably the worst part of it was when we got to New Orleans and the general sales manager came running into me and said, "When was the last time you called home?" And that was over 2 months from now. And I said, "Why would I call home?" I said, "Nothing's wrong. The phone calls are expensive and I got 5 other kids to worry about. But I did call home, and as I said, lesson learned." So, and if nothing else, I have to congratulate all the people here who are collectors for keeping this tradition alive for all these years, from when the business was sold to now. But I'm going to leave by breaking your heart. At the end of the trip, the sales manager came to myself and Bob and said, "Take all the toys you want." And it was like, we're 18, so I took a train set in the wing, and it was a new product out at that time. And looking back, they developed the first drone that were out there. What they're using for drones, they had the wing thing. I hope you still have the patents. And thanks a lot, David, and the people involved for doing all this. And if you like this race, you can quick go over the day for it.
Born in New Haven, Fairhaven section. And number one, if you want to sound like you're from around here, you have to say Abeets. It's spelled A-B-E-E-T-S. And you'll fit right in, okay? And we never went to Pepe's or Sally's really because I was from Fairhaven. And so we went to Grand Abeets. So you walk to your neighborhood, you know, bakery and your neighborhood pizza.
That was a burger for guys that don't mind.
Yeah. So I had 4 relatives that worked with AC Gilbert. My grandmother, Anna Petrulis, and her sister, Kitty Milone. They were both assemblers. And then cousins, Tony Zambrano was a foreman, and Noble Zambrano was in the engineering department. So I'm a little younger. They were still in business. I'd come down with my mom and pick up my grandmother and aunt. They didn't drive, so we pick them up after work. But I think the main thing is the influence of Gilbert on the kids around New Haven. I know it's across the country, but Gilbert toys were everywhere. It was a part of us. Chemistry sets, Erector sets. I became a mechanical engineer. I played with all the toys. And chemistry sets, like just cousins across the street, they'd come over and want to play with my chemistry set, and they go through those recipe cards. And of course, being the younger one, I didn't know, but they said, "This is the one you want." Gunpowder. But that all ended when my younger sister ate some chemicals. Out it went, you know. But we all were fun. We all made it. So, but another interesting thing I was thinking about coming down here too. Today I was east of here at the Connecticut River, and I was crabbing today, and I was looking up at the Bascule Bridge, and I know that was the one that Gilbert used to when he made his design for the instructions. In that 1907 Bascule Bridge that I have in my house, it operates. I was sitting right under it, just looking at it and saying, like, so they use a lot of the local things that, you know, kind of all click with me. You'll be going to Bramford, and you'll see it for the train sets, the Bramford Diner and the Madison Station. It's all right up the coast here. All the prototypes were right from around here. I thought that was pretty interesting. And again, it was just a great experience growing up with Gilbert toys. It really was.
Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I went through my list and saw all the descendants, made sure I had it on my list. I want to thank you all for bearing with us with the heat. We didn't finish the pizza, so I guess nobody likes modern pizza. The salads and the peppers went quick with those because